Lately, in Solomon Islands, the participants of a pyramid scheme that registered around July 2019 and was collapsed in May of this year, 2020. Now, the participants of the pyramid scheme, they took out to the media, they took out to the social media to market and to encourage the customers of this pyramid scheme that they actually received their investments. Now, this photo is an example of one of their posts in the social media within their page called One Pacifica, which I've discussed in my next presentation, which detail the list of the participants that are still under recording, and also a list of participants that already been paid. And so with the advertisement of this short of information, and you can think of the people who are struggling in the markets and the street vendors, and people who really wanted to get out from poverty, and they will definitely go after this sort of posting and this sort of marketing and advertisement. So here, this post is just an example of what's actually going on in the community. So this is one of the posts and photos, and here is another one. This one appears in the mainstream media, and this one is an example that's within the one link page, where the customer, the participant who received funds from this pyramid scheme actually put this money on the street and took a photo and uploaded into the media. So these are the kinds of things which this marketing mentors another layer of officers that they market this pyramid scheme through the social media or through the media, as well as from mouth-to-mouth referrals. So they go from house to house, they're discussing the market vendors and showing these photos and showing money and so forth to the people they met on the streets, as well as they discuss with, or probably in where they go to, in the churches and in public gatherings. So they actually convince people by this sort of pictures. They took photo and advertise and market to them that, hey, these funds, we are actually earning money from this pyramid scheme. So this is another photo. This is a huge lot of funds. I really don't know if this is genuine coming out from this pyramid scheme, or if it's somebody who's a friend of someone within the pyramid scheme working in the banking sector probably took a photo. It looks like a photo within a bank job. As an ex-banker, I could tell, but anyway, they probably organize it in their pyramid money scheme. So, yep, this is some of the examples. These are some, but yep. So these are actually my preview, just to show off what actually happening in the street of Honiara, as well as within the people who actually benefited. Some are very educated people, some are not too educated, some are really people who are struggling, who are trying to meet their necessities and their needs on a daily basis. So some whose paychecks, whose fortnight salaries or monthly salaries cannot last for at least within a fortnight. So this type of advertisement not only attractive, but it also allows them to freely move in and easily convinced by this sort of advertisement. What I really wanted to start off with is snapshot, just to relate on what actually causes people to move into this sort of activities. Now, people say the gaps between the have and have-nots. In our society, you have people who can afford and people who cannot afford. And so if you live in a lifestyle or in a life that you often, sometimes you go without food, or sometimes you go without, the basic necessities like basic clothes and, needs like good food, or just basic food, or, these kind of things that, you envy your neighbors, you envy your friends. And so you really want to close these gaps. So some people say that, the causes could be because of these gaps. The people who have nots, they really wanted to, make a quick, get rich on a quick basis. Or some people, they really wanted to quickly close the gap and be enrich them quickly by, joining this this sort of scam or pyramid scheme. So some people, they say the causes are this factor. Bosley said that it's the degree of economic contraction. So you can, this line can be interpreted in many ways. So one example I would take is, for example, if you're born out from a silver spoon, or you're probably coming out from good inheritance, you're coming out from a parent that can able to afford. And, slowly the inheritance probably just absorbed into the ears and then went dry, for example. Or you have, the breadwinner of your family, your father or your mother, for example, or you're probably living with your uncle. And then, the affordability at the time just collapsed as a result of, an auntie and uncle that a mom passes on. So you tend to have a very economic, usual affordability that you can afford because of this lifestyle is now reduced to something else that, you are just back to basic and you couldn't afford. You will be like the normal citizens in a setting or in a country. And the other interpretation of degree of economic concentration contraction is when, some countries, they can be wealthy initially and then they came through a situation of economic collapse. We're talking about cases like 1929 global crisis, or we can talk about the 1997 Asian crisis, we can talk about the 2008 global financial crisis. This sort of crisis can also cause economic contraction. So because of this economic contraction, it can cause severe difficulties within a population of a country. And so life changes, the earnings changes, and because of this, citizens tend to face difficulties, and so because of this economic contraction as a result of the factors I mentioned, or probably a factor related to, for example, famine or war or pests that affecting the agricultural supply within an economy, for example, this can cause a economic contraction. So a change out of these factors can bring about economic difficulties. And so Bosley thought that economic contraction can allow people to look for, get quick rich schemes. So they can able to freely join this sort of schemes. The other one, as I said, they really wanted to get out from poverty, this one here. So they said the only way of getting out from poverty is not to start from the scratch. So it's not to, to organize your agricultural lands, or it's not to, get a loan from the bank and start off an agricultural project, or it's not to get a fishing line and hook and go out and fish and sell and, this kind of thing. They thought that poverty can be removed by, get rich quick by joining this sort of pyramid scheme or scams. The other factors is this because the owner of this pyramid scheme or this scam is very good at manipulating people. So is it another factor? Sometimes the manipulator is not only someone who is really good at talking and convincing people to follow the instruction or to follow the scheme that they or he or she intends to sell. Sometimes it's not like that. It's probably someone with authority, for example, a church priest or a bishop or someone who look after a congregation, and so out from that relationship of respect, they can also be a manipulator. So we have a situation where church leaders, they actually convince their congregators to comply with scams or comply with pyramid schemes. But even if you look at these factors, the factors here that I mentioned here, if you look at these factors, then you think about what happened in the United States of America. I'm just giving an example here, because America is deemed globally as a wealthy country. But in America, they have a case of the start off with a huge pyramid scheme in 1920, and the people involved, not only some people who can afford, but law enforcement officers also involved. So we can say that it is not only the people who really wanted to wanted to accept access quick funds in order to survive. Not only this sort of category, but we have the category of people who really, they on top of the pyramid already. We talk about CEO of companies, talk about owners of multinational institutions. So I will be discussing the case of Benny Madoff in 2008 in United States. He also operated a pyramid scheme. And in this pyramid scheme, he actually convinced people to join and institutions to join. So you're talking about multinational companies, they joined this pyramid scheme. You're talking about universities, talking about companies commercial banks who operated globally. They also part of this pyramid scheme. So it's kind of like confusing. It is only, some people believe that it's because of poverty and so forth. But when I'll put on the case on Madoff of US in 2008, he was dealing with millionaires and he committed a scam of around $70 billion US. So it's kind of a confused situation. It's not about the people who really wanted to join comes from a life that is cannot afford, but you have situation of millionaires, they also wanted to get. So I think it's come down to behavior, the way you look at life, define what is economic needs, economic wants, whether you really want to live within those needs, and if not, what else. So it's probably around this concept and not really about the people who really cannot afford, or those who live in poverty are the only ones who can join. I think based on the whole discussion of this series of pyramid scheme, you can tell that not only the people within a country that cannot afford, they can easily be convinced. It's also in the other countries and other sectors. I've also, so I will be also covering the Chinese pyramid scheme. Think of Chinese as as a booming global economy, but within China itself they are struggling. So that's it. This is just an opening of the subject of pyramid scheme.